fosters homes for imaginary friends. Imagine for a second if somebody took that idea, made it live action, didn't pay the royalties, and instead renamed it If. Hello and welcome everybody to my review of If. Am I reaching a little bit? Yeah, but we got some new movies coming out this weekend, so I'll bring you some new reviews. But let's talk about the new 2024 movie If. And I'll tell you right now, If has a pretty stacked cast. So let's just go over the main people starring in this film. You have Kaylee Fleming, Ryan Reynolds, John Krasinski, Fiona Shaw, Alan Kim, Lisa Colin Zeiss, and Bobby McKinnon. But the voices is where this movie really shines. So we've got Steve Carell, Phoebe Waller-Bridge, Louis Gossett Jr., Aquafina, Emily Blunt, George Clooney, Bradley Cooper, Matt Damon, Bill Hader, Richard Jenkins, Keegan-Michael Key, John Krasinski, Blake Lively, Sam Rockwell, Maya Rudolph, Amy Schumer, fuck her, Jon Stewart, and Brad Pitt. Like, holy fucking shit. And this would mark the second time that Brad Pitt has played essentially an invisible character that doesn't say anything and no one even knows that he's in the movie. He was just, I guess, wanting to do some kind of kids thing. So what is If about? If is the story of 12-year-old B who moves into her grandmother's Margaret's apartment in New York while her father awaits heart surgery in the same hospital that her mother died of cancer years earlier. One night, B goes out to buy a charger for her mother's old camcorder and sees an unfamiliar creature. And that is where all of a sudden she gets the ability to see imaginary creatures. The movie If is a very interesting movie. Not just for the star-studded voice acting cast that is in this movie, but it is written and produced by John Krasinski, who for the most part has been largely doing other things, more adult things. And there's some behind the scenes. Hey, Sherry, what's up? Welcome to my non-spoiler review of If. So John Krasinski has been doing a lot of things as far as adult space goes. The interesting part about this, and I watched some interviews and things like that, was that he created this for his kids and to do a project for kids and to kind of get into something new. And I gotta say, there's probably going to be a lot of opinions about this movie, but I'm a sucker for John Krasinski's work. I think he's a very great writer. This movie is very intriguing because the story, while not too original, if you've seen Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends, is pretty much the basic concept of that show. I'm actually largely surprised that Cartoon Network and or the writers and producers of that show haven't sued this movie because it's very similar. Where it kind of differs is John Krasinski doing the whole cancer angle. It's does what Guardians of the Galaxy 1 did. Why I like that movie so much was that there was a very serious, like, Star-Lord's mother had cancer in the beginning, and it kind of got you to endear to the character a lot quicker because of the whole setup. And I think that the actress who plays B is very likable. And it's got this kind of childlike feeling to it. Now, comparing this to Garfield, if you guys saw my drunken review of that, which I do apologize, I was outside and just thought I'd shoot it there. But this feels more honed as far as its ideas and the story it's trying to tell. I don't care. Every once in a while, I'm kind of a sucker for these touching, sentimental type of stories that really hit you in the feels. And even if it is borrowing from another concept that probably did it a little bit better, I think it's got a lot of heart. I think that the voice work for the most part is great. I hate Amy Schumer. Her voice is totally out of place. She does nothing but sound like Amy Schumer. You'll know which character it is. It's the most fucking annoying one, much like Amy Schumer. Uh, and Aquafina, I'm 50-50 about. She's just in too much shit. I don't particularly have a problem with what she chooses as far as her acting career, but for me, she always plays the same kind of character, and it's no different in this movie. Kind of loud, obnoxious. That character is like, ah, yeah. That's her character. But besides that, Steve Carell kills it. I had no clue Louis Gossett Jr. was in this, but now it makes sense given the character he plays. And like I said, this is non-spoiler, so I want you guys to kind of see if you could put the voices to the actor. Phoebe Waller-Bridger is good. Since Fleabag, I see a lot of her characters coming off kind of like that. If you've never seen that show, you have no clue what I'm talking about. But for the most part, this is actually a wholesome family movie. I mean, what can I say? It's good, wholesome family fun in a landscape of all of these different artistic movies. I feel like this movie just wants to be something everybody can watch and enjoy. And every once in a while, that's not bad. I mean, it's 104 minutes, so it's a pretty decent runtime. And I think if we're comparing this to Garfield, I think this, for me, hits a lot more of what I was expecting in Garfield, as opposed to what I got. There's a good sense of urgency. There's a decent plot. There's some really surprisingly, like, heartstring tugging moments that I was not expecting. Ryan Reynolds is Ryan Reynolds. I mean, if you like Ryan Reynolds and his style of comedy, he's pretty much the same as he always is. The only time that I feel like it works for him a little bit differently is Deadpool. But in this, he does have a very intriguing backstory, and he does do slightly more acting. There is a couple emotional moments, which a lot of people, I think, forget Ryan Reynolds is a genuinely good actor. And there's, in particular, some moments with his character where he puts a lot of surprising emotional depth into what's going on and into the situation that's happening. I find the concept, even though maybe ripped off from something else, very fascinating. And Brad Pitt is in this. Again, in a role where you have no clue who he is. And I'm just going to tell you that Brad Pitt is in this because it's not a spoiler. You don't see him. You don't even really hear his voice until damn near probably the end of the movie. And if you're not really listening, you won't catch it's Brad Pitt. But he plays the most marketed character that ironically nobody can see. And I find it hilarious because working with Ryan Reynolds, it kind of reminds me of Deadpool 2, where nobody knew he was in that movie. He was the guy who got shocked on the telephone line when they failed to, fight Cable. And it was a little inside joke. And I don't know if it's working with Ryan Reynolds or whatever, and they thought it'd be a funny gag again. But yeah, Brad Pitt's the invisible character that doesn't speak. That's fucking hilarious. I had no clue till I looked up the casting because the character does have a moment where it says something. I was like, that voice sounds familiar, but I couldn't place it. So I looked it up. And if you don't look it up, you'll have no fucking idea Brad Pitt's in this movie. I found that fucking funny. He wasn't in any of the behind the scenes or the voice work or anything like that. He's completely just mysterious, like, casting. I had no clue Louis Gossett Jr. is in this. I had no clue that man was still alive. Holy shit, he's got to be like, what, 80s now? But he's got that gruff sound. Like, you hear his voice, you know it's Louis Gossett Jr. There's no mistaking. But yeah, my pros is this movie is very fun. I think it has enough. I said in Garfield, it was a chore to get through, and I couldn't imagine parents taking their kids to see it because it was so terrible. This one is the polar opposite, where it's super fun, and I think there's enough here for adults that kids won't get. Like, there's a lot of heavy shit in this movie. I was not expecting a lot of things they talk about with life and death and people's imaginations and how your imagination can help you get through tough times and how kids make these things up as a way to cope with the trauma and the things that they're going to. And even some of it is about losing your imagination and your sense of wonderment as you grow older and you kind of just let the world beat you down. And I'm getting a little bit choked up talking about it because how the movie handles it. And I love movies in New York, and this is primarily shot in New York. I even recognize like they shot on location. I know all the locations that they shot at, and it just really hit the feels, especially towards the back end of the movie. Like the third act was like, holy shit. I did not expect it for like a kids kind of thing to get as deep as they get with some of the themes and the stuff that they're talking about. All the characters work except for the one Amy Schumer plays. Fuck her. But besides that, the comedy that she says and stuff is good because, as usual, it's not written by her. So the comedy and stuff comes through really well. But yeah, this was a fun little movie. And to be honest with you, there's no other new movies out until next week. So I wanted to cover something, and I thought, what if I did If? Huh? Anyways, If is a fun movie. For my negatives, I would say that the one negative is that this reminds me too much of Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends. I watched that on Cartoon Network. If you've never seen the show, you have no fucking idea what I'm talking about. But for me, or anybody who's seen that show, you will recognize a lot of different story beats, some of the character designs, some of the way the characters interact with people, or they interact with these people who could see them. And the gist of the story, he changes just enough to make it original, but it's really close on straight up like copyright infringement. Like it's like right on the line where you could take it to court, but maybe not win. And that kind of bugs me because I feel like John Krasinski is a great writer. He has great ideas. I love A Quiet Place. I can't wait to see day one, and I'll have a review of that up probably on Friday. But overall, I think for a original idea, for an original children's kind of movie, I mean, it is PG-13. There's a lot of heavy themes, but I think the way they wrap it in these fun, goofy kind of characters and the acting, and especially the voice work, is very good. Some of the characters that are voiced, you can't tell who the voice actor is, but a lot of them, because of who they are, you do recognize right away the person's voice. That's a big thing for me, and that's another point I'm going to take off, because when I'm watching people voice a character, they should be unidentifiable, and I have to look them up. And the only one who does that is Brad Pitt, and that's literally because he's a character who doesn't talk till the end. So the rest of the cast, I could kind of pick out who was who. And I just think voice work is really important in a movie that solely pertains voice acting. And I think that it's lost on a lot of people, like how important it is to change your voice. There's a lot of good cartoons and these like live actions that have come out where you can't tell the actor unless you look them up. Like, who knew Jeremy Ironside did Scar for years, or I mean, stuff like that. Or even Mufasa. I kind of figured that was James Earl Jones, but I was so young, I hadn't watched I did watch Star Wars, but I didn't know he voiced both of them. I wasn't a movie critic until, I got older. So I think it's really important that when you voice a character, you should do something unique and different. That's the problem everybody has with Chris Pratt voicing characters, and I agree. But we should hold that bar for every movie if we're going to complain about that. And I feel like I could identify everybody's voices very easily. I knew who every character was. And, I think, it kind of takes away from real professional voice actors, like people who voice video games and people who voice, different movies and come in, to different projects. I think that takes away talent from there. in place of a Hollywood star just because they're recognizable, or a music pop star or something like that. And I don't like that in the industry. I think it takes jobs away from other people who have been doing this most of their life and won't ever get the limelight that they deserve because they're not a famous star. That's just a random tangent, but that's my feelings on voice acting in general. So all in all, I'm going to give this movie a solid 7. I mean, this isn't a movie that I consider is like a movie I've been waiting for, like in a violent nature, or uh, action packed like Furiosa, and I've been waiting for it. This is just a fun, nice family film you can take the kids to see, and they'll have a good time. You'll enjoy the older adult themes that the movie tackles. The kids will have fun with the goofy characters and the big set designs, which, by the way, another big point, which is why it's up to 7, is the set designs in this are spectacular. The world that they build around this, some of it is shot practically, some of it is CGI for like the world that's created, but it is just amazing looking. It really taps into that field of a child's dream and wonderment. And I think that's important because that's what this movie is about. So it does hit a lot of the beats I was looking for in this kind of film. I wish the horror movie Imaginary did this, because then it would have been a good fucking horror movie. But this movie is fun, quick, easy, something to see. I would suggest seeing this at night, because at least my theater, there were a shit ton of kids in there, and they were talking, and one was running through the aisle, and it's like, please, parents, take control of your kids, for the love of God. I'm so glad my daughter's into horror movies, because this was just truly a terrible viewing experience for me. There were loud screaming. I mean, some of it was cool. The kids were cheering at certain characters and laughing, but it was just weird. That's why I don't see these during the day, but it was the only time that I could. And it was a terrible experience. So I'm sure if you're a parent, you won't mind. You already know the deal. But for me, who hasn't seen a kid's movie with my daughter in like years because she's just not into them, it was a horrible viewing experience. And, be kind. Keep your kids under control, man. It's a public place. Jesus Christ. Anyways, thank you everybody for watching. Let me know. Have you seen If? What's your favorite kids kind of story? And what kind of movies are you looking forward to seeing this summer? Next, I have a review coming up. I'm going to do a couple of different reviews, and there may be a late night talks tomorrow. Don't know. You have to tune in. But thank you everybody for watching. And as always, remember, there is only one rule here in the Fandom Zone: kneel before General Zod.